full accountability for my wrongs and my actions.
Welcome back to Advocacy Alchemy with Professor Ross. Today we have a good one, guys. This is a case this is heart-wrenching, guys, okay? This case forces us to look at the dark side of gamer rage and the catastrophic legal consequences of losing control. We're diving into a case of Jalin White. This guy is 22 years old. He's the father of a small child, and he found himself in the crosshairs of the law after a game of NBA 2K turned into a nightmare for his 8-month-old son. All right, we'll talk about what's going on here. This is not a body cam, guys. We'll look at some news reports. We'll look at the case files I've gathered, and we'll talk about the laws at play here. With that, let's jump in.
A Milwaukee father is in jail tonight accused of throwing his baby against a wall because he was upset at a video game. Sadly, prosecutors do not expect the child to survive. It happened in an apartment near 42nd and Good Hope on Election Day. Investigative reporter James Stratton is outside the Milwaukee County Jail tonight. And James, we have to warn our viewers the details of this case are disturbing to read and to share.
They are disturbing to read and to share, Derek. This criminal complaint states that baby's brain injury is so severe, as you mentioned, he is not expected to survive. His dad, Jalin White, still here at the Milwaukee County Jail. Prosecutors could upgrade the charges against him.
Tonight, disturbing new details about child abuse prosecutors say unfolded inside this Milwaukee apartment. Police say 20-year-old Jalin White was playing NBA 2K, and he was, quote, down 2 points in the fourth quarter of the game and became frustrated when he threw his 8-month-old son against the wall.
Jalin White, 24 CF 5334.
In court Saturday, prosecutors charged White with physical abuse of a child and neglecting a child, causing great bodily harm.
The defendant has confessed to this incident. The defendant is also the only person with the ability and the opportunity to inflict this harm on the victim.
The criminal complaint states White told detectives, quote, I heard the wall. It was hard on his head. It was hard. It was a loud, hard wall, end quote. Later saying, quote, I heard the impact of the wall after I tossed him. Prosecutors say the baby has a traumatic brain injury and is not expected to survive. If the child does die, prosecutors will upgrade the charges to homicide.
This is likely going to become a homicide. This is a severe level of violence for an innocent infant child, which had multiple injuries.
Those other injuries, discovered by hospital staff, they include a clavicle fracture and 6 rib fractures, all in different stages of healing.
This appears not to be the first abusive conduct with this child based on the fact that there are multiple stages of healing of broken ribs.
White shaking his head as the court commissioner speaks. She ordered he be held on a $100,000 cash bail.
James, police say they arrested the child's mother as well?
Yeah, they originally arrested both White and the mom because of the severity of the injuries to that 8-month-old, but they released the mom, police say, or prosecutors say rather, after he admitted that he was home alone at the time and he admitted to that crime as well, according to the complaint.
Investigative reporter James Stratton reporting live outside the Milwaukee County Jail.
Hey, Sam, this was all part of a plea deal. 22-year-old Jalin White will now spend the next decade in prison. Prosecutors say he confessed, but today his attorney said he doesn't exactly remember what happened.
My intentions was never to hurt my baby boy. Everything just happened so quick.
A quick decision causing a lifetime of pain.
I want to take full accountability for my wrongs and my actions.
Tuesday, 22-year-old Jalin White pleaded guilty to child abuse and neglecting a child. The child abuse charge originally said he intentionally caused bodily harm, but he pleaded guilty to recklessly causing it.
I made a mistake. My mind was moving fast.
Prosecutors say in November 2024, he threw his 8-month-old son against the wall after he got frustrated playing NBA 2K. Investigators say the baby had a fractured skull and hemorrhaging. Prosecutors say White changed his story multiple times before confessing.
You have one of the most innocent of innocent victims in our community, hurt by the very person who under the law should protect them and keep them safe, and then attempts to cover up his actions.
White's defense says his memory is fuzzy on the specifics and he panicked.
Mr. White wishes he could tell the court exactly what happened. Unfortunately, being under the influence of marijuana and Percocet at the time, we just don't have that.
The baby was initially not expected to survive, but he did. Prosecutors say to this day, the baby has vision issues, is dependent on a feeding tube, and is seeing multiple specialists weekly. Ultimately, the judge sentenced White to 12 years initial confinement and 7 years extended supervision.
The injuries to your son are
extraordinarily significant.
Now, today's sentence does include the time White has already served, which adds up to a little more than a year. Sam?
Imagine you're down 2 points. It's the fourth quarter. The clock is ticking. You're holding your infant son, and most people feel a surge of adrenaline. Jalin White felt a surge of violence. That feeling of frustration turned into a choice that landed him in prison for 12 years. Let's look at the law behind this tragedy. Okay, guys, this happened in Wisconsin. So we're going to be looking at the Wisconsin laws. Okay, so the first is physical abuse of a child, recklessly causing great bodily harm. This is found in the Wisconsin Statutes, section 948.03, section 3A. Now, if I'm presenting this to a jury, I'm focusing on the word reckless. Unlike the word intentional abuse, where you aim to cause a specific injury, recklessness means you acted with a conscious disregard for the safety of, in this instance, the child that he was holding. All right, so let's think about this squarely. All right, picking up an 8-month-old and throwing them toward a wall. That's heinous. That's an act with inherently unreasonable risk. He could have killed this baby. You're going to always have some great bodily harm when you throw somebody against a wall. You're talking about a full-grown adult throwing a helpless baby who can't even put their hands up to attack. All right, mental state. Now, Mr. Jalin White, he told the court everything just happened so quick. Now, in a legal sense, that doesn't excuse him. In fact, it defines recklessness, acting on a whim without regard for the life of the child that you're supposed to be watching over. All right, let's look at this word, great bodily harm. Okay, this doesn't mean just a bruise. Okay, that's not when, anyone who's raised kids get hurt around the house. Okay, yeah, they'll fall down, scrape a knee, or they might bump their head. Yeah, that happens. Okay, especially when kids are really small, 1, 2, starting to walk, getting into stuff. We're not talking about that. Okay, we're talking about a skull fracture, broke his head, permanent vision loss, having to permanently be on a feeding tube. We're talking about some very great harm. When you have an injury that's this severe, the law shifts from penalty into the highest felony bracket. Okay? And let me ask you this. Now, when you think about what's at stake here, the facts, doesn't it seem quite logical why this person did not take this to a jury trial? All right, let's move into the second count. All right, the second count is child neglect resulting in great bodily harm. And this one's found at the Wisconsin Statutes, section 948.21, section 1B. And this law holds a caregiver responsible when they fail to provide the necessary care or when their actions result in the failure to protect the child from harm. Now, according to the court records, this charge was part of the negotiated plea. It resulted in distinct and a significant sentence. Okay? So he did have to go to prison for 12 years. He'll have to do some supervision once he's out. Now, we have the records below so you can take a look at all of them. And let's talk a little bit more about this count too. All right, so child neglect has several key elements that the state has to prove. All right, you have the responsibility portion. You have to show that the defendant was the person responsible for the child's welfare at the time of the injury. All right, we know that because he was watching the baby while the mom was going somewhere and he was at home playing NBA 2K while he was watching his 8-month-old son. All right, next, the failure. The defendant must have intentionally or through the failure of some act contributed to the neglect of the child. All right, so here I think it's more of the intentional route. And then you have a result, okay? Because of this failure, the child suffered great bodily harm, which is defined as an injury that creates a substantial risk of death or permanent loss or impairment. Remember, the child is going to have vision problems forever, has to use a feeding tube. Let's talk about the sentencing. Now, in White's case, the court sentenced him to 6 years for this specific count, and it breaks down kind of weird how they do it here in Wisconsin, okay? So he gets 3 years on the initial confinement, and he has 3 years of extended supervision once he gets done with that, on that count, all right? Now, there is some consecutive sentencing. That means he has to finish up one term before he can start on the next term, all right? Count 2 is ordered to be served consecutive to count 1. So he has to finish count 1 before he can start serving count 2. Count 1 is for 13 years in total. He has to do 9 in and 4 out. Count 2 is 6 years in total. He has to do 3 in and 3 on the outside. So on the inside, he has to do a total of 12 years. And on the outside, he has to do a total of 7 years. And for anyone who's confused about these two charges, you have to think about it. So the second count deals with what happens after the event. So really, after the baby is initially harmed, what happens next? Okay, that's where the neglect portion comes in. Now, the actual child abuse portion is the act itself. The baby hit the wall and was hurt seriously. Next, we'll deal with our evidentiary standards. We go through these daily. It's important to know which level the government or the police must reach based on what stage you are in this whole process. So let's move into that next. Okay, let's walk through our levels of evidence. We'll start at the lowest, we'll work our way up to the highest, okay? Starting first with mere suspicion. Now, mere suspicion that's basically when the police are called out to deal with an incident. When the police or the government show up, they don't have any proof that there's a crime that's happening. They can't take any real action at this stage. This is simply based on what someone else has said, and they have not had time to gather their own evidence. Now, I will say that when the police show up, and it's just mere suspicion, they're going to be on high alert. They're going to be looking for violations. And so they find one, they're going to move into reasonable suspicion. That's our second step. Reasonable suspicion means that the police have enough facts and circumstances to believe that there's some criminal activity happening. There's some criminal activity afoot. At this level, the police can stop you. They can ask you questions. They can pat you down for weapons. All right, this is the really logical step, okay? Think about it. Police show up because they got a 911 call. They start asking questions. Now, after the first initial questions of what's your name, now what's happening, and they begin to hear some evidence, oh, somebody punched me in the face. Oh, okay, that changes everything. Who punched you in the face? Or if they're talking to both people, all right, now nobody's free to leave if I heard you all have been in a fight or whatever, all right? So once you reach the level of reasonable suspicion, you are not free to leave until the police have allowed you to leave, okay? So that's a very important point to keep in mind, especially think about this one today, all right? Here you have injuries that the police are able to see. The police arrived at the hospital to deal with this case, okay? So the baby was taken to the hospital. At the hospital, nurses and staff are mandatory reporters. If they see some abuse or what they think is abuse, they're supposed to call. And then the experts come in to see and say, okay, yeah, this is abuse, or this is some pattern of abuse over time. All right, so police get there, they see the injuries. White tells them the mother bumped the baby's head on the door frame, trying to hurry up and get him to the hospital. All right, the officers get that gut feeling. Well, that doesn't really sound right. This baby's here and this baby's hurt bad. Story doesn't match the severity of the trauma. They now have enough to detain and question Mr. White further. Moving up to probable cause. Now, at probable cause, this is a very important stage for me and you and everyone else who's dealing with the police. At this stage, the police or the government, whoever's here doing this operation, can arrest you. What does probable cause mean? That means that they have gathered enough evidence that would lead a reasonable person in their same position to say, yes, we have enough, let's make an arrest, and we have enough to connect this arrest or this offense to the person we're arresting. All right, so the suspect is involved some kind of way. We have a bridge. All right, here, doctors perform x-rays. They find 6 ribs that have been fractured, and they're in different stages of healing. So they're not just from this incident. So think about that, guys. That means this baby's been hurt before. Understand, when you have that evidence of prior injuries, prior serious injuries, that's a smoking gun in child abuse cases. All right, it proves that this wasn't a one-time accident. This is evidence that gives the police probable cause to make an arrest. And they did arrest Mr. Jalin White. Let's move up one more step, preponderance of the evidence. Now, this is the first level where we'll be in civil court. This is where people are fighting over money, or people are suing people in order to get something to happen. All right, say for instance, somebody breached a contract. The key thing a person suing someone is looking for is either their money back or for someone to go ahead and perform the contract. Okay, so think of preponderance of the evidence. This is the level where it's more likely than not that the claim that the person is bringing is true. They only need 51% of the evidence in their favor to win these types of cases. Now, if this were a hearing, say for a protective order, you would only need to show 51% of the evidence in your favor to win this type of action. All right, between the medical reports and White's shifting stories, more likely than not that this standard could easily be cleared for some sort of protective order, a protection from abuse, protection of a family member, whatever, okay, whatever they're going to call it there in Wisconsin. And I would just note, okay, every state is going to have specific ways they call certain things, but from what I've noticed, researching these different laws, most states have many of the same general crime, okay, and they deal with a lot of the same stuff. When you're talking about family law, when you're talking about how people are going to be safe in family relationship, a lot of states deal with those issues very similarly, okay? All right, moving up one more level, we have clear and convincing evidence. Now, this level is also in the civil realm, but it's going to require more receipts. So if we were talking about a case to terminate Mr. White's parental rights altogether, then the party bringing that action against Mr. White would need to put on more evidence because you're taking away his parental rights. You got to show clear and convincing evidence, which means you need about 75% of the evidence in your favor or more. This is also the same level when you're talking about changing custody. If parents are already, if it's already been established where the children are going to be in which house and what the visitation schedule is going to be, to change that, you need to show that there's been a change in circumstance. And it has to be one that's clear and convincing by showing that, hey, look, there's been a lot of stuff happening. I have receipts I can show you, and I don't think the other side would have the same amount of evidence to combat against what I'm bringing. All right, key thing, this is a higher bar. It's going to be used in cases that really need more evidence. When you're dealing with these government agencies, all right, IRS, if you get called in by any of, okay, there's an agency, EPA. Anytime you get called in front of one of these commissions, many times, it's going to be at this clear and convincing evidence level. Okay, and finally, let's move up to beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this is where the Jalin White case is, at the beyond a reasonable doubt level. This level means that there's no other reasonable conclusion that the fact finder can come to besides the defendant being guilty of the charges that are brought, okay? I use reasonable in there, so no other logical conclusion. That's probably a better term. All right, so here, he took a plea, okay? He didn't want to go to jury trial. If he went to jury trial, he's going to face way more than 12 years in prison. I can promise you that, okay? If his plea gave him 12 years, if he went to jury trial, he might have been looking at much more time, maybe 20 or 30 years. All right, by the time White entered the guilty plea, the evidence was overwhelming. Between the medical science of the healing fractures and his own confession of having some kind of 2K rage, there's no other logical explanation for the child's injury. I hope he finds some help. Hope that baby is able to recover after all that. That's ridiculous. All right, let's move into our conclusion. I'll let you go next. This case offers a somber lesson in intuition. For the investigators, their intuition saw through the shifting story to the darker truth of what was going on here. For Jalin White, it should have been the intuition to put the controller down and walk away. The judge in this case, and if it went to a jury, would have seen abuse disguised as a moment of frustration. 12 years in prison. And after he's done with that, he has 7 years of supervised parole or community supervision. It's a heavy price, but it reflects the law's duty to protect the most vulnerable populations. What do you think? Does the gamer rage defense hold any weight for you? What about the sentence? Is that the right sentence? Did the judge come to the right sentence here? Tell me your comments below. Like, share, subscribe. This is Advocacy Alchemy, and I am Professor Ross. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe.
If you've got ideas or videos you want me to lecture on, send them to the queue. And come back tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. for another lecture.